Quantic has been reborn, kinda. Under new management and with new players that weren't on the original team, the only thread that really connects this new organization to the old one is Mark Frodan. Regardless, it's always good to see new opportunities arise for players. And with a strong lineup already announced, Quantic Reborn looks to be a legitimately competitive team. Clutch did sit down with the Chief Operating Officer of Quantic Reborn, Bernie Catalan, as I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, to talk about the new team and its direction moving forward. We're going to get into that interview in just a second, but before that, we can kind of talk about it a little bit. I think this is a very bizarre choice to take a bunch of people and a bunch of managers and a bunch of different storylines that aren't Quantic and call it Quantic, but that's just me.
Why? Quantic has the name over all the other ones. I mean, I feel like they're the strongest brand out of every single team.
They partner with multiple Korean teams, so like even above North America and Europe, like Korean teams know who they are because they used to partner with StarTale in that regard and practice with them. I think it's the best choice in terms of at least branding.
Like, if they rejoined under It's Gosu or Fornot, does the community see them as like a huge power like they do right now? I really feel like Quantic right now, the new Quantic, is actually seen better than before because it's the new management, and then you also have kind of like the name, the funding almost the same way. But
well, let's see what the COO has to say.
First question, what prompted the merger of 4-0 It's Gosu and the remnants of Quantic Gaming?
Okay, basically the idea of the merger between the three organizations came to us from Mark. He's the former owner of Quantic. It first started off mostly as a theory. We were going about to see what we can do, how we could work together. Over time, it took about a month, and we came to some mutually agreeable terms, and thus we're here.
Why did you choose the name Quantic?
Well, that question came up a lot when we were having our discussions. It basically came down to Quantic having more of a solid fan base. All in all, we feel the community, the fans of Quantic, wanted this to happen, so we gave them what they wanted.
Quantic's definitely a big name in the foreign scene, and it was huge news that it did close down. What are you going to do now to prevent a team closure happening in the future?
Well, one thing, we evaluated a lot of the flaws and we opened up the bugs of Quantic and just evaluated and analyzed everything. I can honestly say that the reason it's shut down is because they were overspending a lot, and that's one thing that I'm good at, is not overspending. They were also really investor driven. All their finances were really backed by investors, and with our new system is we want to run more sponsor based as opposed to having to rely so much on investors.
We did announce your Counter-Strike Go and StarCraft II team rosters, as well as your Call of Duty Black Ops 2 team. Do you have any plans to add any more teams or players to these games on your rosters, or do you have a current roster cap?
No, we don't have a cap at the moment, and we are actually looking to expand. We're interested in League of Legends and Dota 2. As far as StarCraft 2 goes, there is room for 1 or 2 more players on the A squad. And in March, sometime after Heart of the Swarm comes out, I plan to open up the academy to the public. So anybody that's interested in becoming a pro gamer or getting sent to events and maybe being promoted to the A squad will have a chance to try out for the team.
Bernie Fujikara Catalan, Chief Operating Officer of Quantic Gaming. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
That we're having new opportunities for players, and we also know, of course, that NASL Season 4 finalist Hyun is now a part of Quantic. We might mention that again later on in the news, but is this team going to work?
I think it is. I mean, I'm very biased. I was on It's Gosu. I thought It's Gosu did a fantastic job coming from basically nothing and then becoming something. I mean, they were actually a very big force to be reckoned with in Heroes of Newerth. StarCraft II, I thought they were very respectable. Huangson, of course, was one of their big stars, and now he is the Team A captain, which I'm really happy to see. But I felt like It's Gosu was doing really nice decisions to become a multi-gaming team. Now, the CEO and the COO are all from It's Gosu. That's very, very awesome to my ears.
Yeah, I do want to commend Fujikura. I think he's one of a really underrated manager out there, because I worked with him a lot when he was doing a bunch of SoCal stuff, because he used to be on Check 6 and he did like a bunch of other stuff, and then he went to It's Gosu. I've met him like countless amount of times, and I see the way he tries to take care of players. I see the way he tries to really run the team right, and he's not one of those guys that's gonna like come out and always go on the show and say like really big stuff to kind of like rattle people, but he's a guy that players really trust. And whenever I talk to one of his players, like back when I talked to Kenny Vu, who's also known as Mystic in the SoCal region, he was always saying like, yeah, I just trust Bernie a lot. He's like one of the greatest guys that I can always go to and talk to. I think if Quantic does it right this time with the good management, I think so, because just like we talked about last week, Quantic was misspending a lot of their money, and I mean they're even admitting it now.
They're expensive team houses then.
Yeah, yeah, they need to be frugal and tight with their books. That was the main
house?
issue that he pointed out when I asked him, how are you not going to make the same mistakes? Hopefully they're not going to make the same mistakes again. And honestly, having Wongson as captain, like you said, I'm very happy about that. Seeing the growth of that player over the last couple of years is phenomenal. And also the media opportunities they have with Maximus Black and some of the other individuals is going to be important for getting their marketing side established. I don't feel that they're going to open a team house anytime soon, though.
Yeah. But they had pretty good marketing before.
They did,
and I
but
think
it was
they
late.
still have the technology, because I remember they have the cameras, they have the recording equipment. Everything's there in place for them to market their players and their brand very correctly.
Yeah, but they didn't do more than interviews.
Yes, yes, of course, of course. But one thing that's so important to me is the fact that he said basically, we are going to be a solvent team, and not just waste money, right? Because that's what he basically said. If you read between the lines, we're not going to use investors anymore. That's basically saying we're not just going to rely on this tree of money to keep growing. Rather, we're just going to try to be solvent, try to get our sponsors, and be a force to be reckoned with in the scene. And they're big enough. They have the name to rival someone like EG. Now, EG, let's be honest, they haven't been complacent at all. They're constantly striving to be better. But I feel like another team, a big team that can support players, is going to be so tremendously good for the scene, especially in the foreign community.
I do not know which players on their StarCraft II team will be attending MLG Dallas, but I do know their Call of Duty Black Ops 2 team will be attending because they want to qualify for that $1 million tournament happening in Hollywood in April. So that's going to be a big push for them on the Black Ops 2 side.
Cool. Well, good news for Quantic, certainly. Kev, do you want to have one final word before we move on?
Yeah, just last thing. I think the thing that they got going on with the A and B team, I think that's very cool. And I certainly think the new A roster is very strong. Like when you have players like Heon, Center as well, as Dan reminded me, is pretty damn good. Of course, Wongzin displayed some really good stuff. And I also like that they gave players like Glon a chance to be on the A team. Like we saw him last season, a couple of the North American Star League qualifiers. So I think that's cool. The only feeling which lets me down a little bit is that it doesn't really feel like Quantic anymore to me. Like I really like the lineup on its own. I think it's fantastic, but it doesn't feel like the Quantic that I used to know. The guys with like Illusion, State, Flow, Sasa. Like those are four guys that
Golden.
like Golden. I identified those guys with Quantic. So I have to get used to this new team, but I do really like it on paper. I think it's a very strong team.
Cool.